You're listening to your healthy radio addiction, The Laura Ingraham Show. 855-40-LAURA, the number here. What's wrong with comprehensive? The thing about comprehensive is it sounds so good when something's comprehensive. And, listen to the emotional plea from Republicans who are pushing comprehensive immigration reform. Marco Rubio, of course, one of them.
This is the most effective enforcement system that this country's ever had. That also includes, as part of the trigger, E-Verify, Universal, and Entry-Exit. This is our common heritage. And it's tragic that a nation of immigrants remains divided on the issue of immigration.
Oh, no. So we should just pick up our marbles and go home? Not debate this? I don't think Rand Paul agrees with that. Speaking of Kentucky, from the great state of Kentucky, Senator Rand Paul. Senator, how are you, sir? Good to talk to you.
Very good, Laura. Glad to be with you.
So, Senator, now it's a tragedy, according to your colleague Marco Rubio, who I got to say is a friend of this show. I like Marco a lot, but that's the kind of stuff that Obama says, right? We got to shut down debate because it's a tragedy. We even discussed. He said it's a tragedy that we're debating gun control a week ago. Now it's a tragedy that we're debating this comprehensive reform.
Well, conservatives, myself included, have always said if we're going to do immigration reform, we have to secure the border first. And so when this comes forward, I have an amendment that's going to be called Trust but Verify, and it says that we have to vote each year on the border being secure in order to progress with immigration reform. So immigration reform will be dependent on Congress each year voting on whether or not the border is
Well, what happens when you lose Congress?
Secure.
What happens when you lose Congress in 2016, if you lose Congress?
Well, that is a contention. There still is a lot.
That's a big problem, though, Senator, isn't it? In 2014, you guys lose the House. 2016, you lose a couple seats. And suddenly the Democrats are in charge.
A lot is unknown still because we don't know exactly what the House will do. The House is proceeding as if we do this stepwise. What my amendment does is tries to simulate what the House is doing by making immigration reform stepwise, one step at a time, dependent on securing the border. The other thing I've been calling for this week is that I think our national security needs to be examined with regard to people going in and out of the country. These two boys came here as asylum seekers, and we had two Iraqis in Bowling Green last year that were caught putting together or buying Stinger missiles, and their fingerprints had been on a bomb, an IED in Iraq, and they were still let into our country. So I don't think the system yet is perfected on following student visas from certain countries. For 10 years after 9/11, we had a special program called NSEERS that was put in place to look at 25 different countries. I think we need to bring that back. I think we need to have additional scrutiny. And if we're going to talk about immigration reform, let's spend some time talking about student visas and asylum seekers and how we're monitoring who gets into our country. And yesterday, Chuck Schumer was dismissive of that, and they're saying, oh, these people are just obstructionists. I am actually one who does want to see the immigration system fixed, but I don't want to do it without having a full debate on whether or not conservatives can be part of the solution.
So you disagree with Marco Rubio that it's tragic that we have to debate this?
Well, no, I think we do need a full and open debate, and I think there's much better chance of actually passing something because conservatives in the House are not going to let something go through that doesn't secure the border. So I have several amendments, not only on securing the border. I have one that says that when you go to register to vote, they have to check you against the work visa data bank to make sure you're eligible or ineligible. Same for welfare. They say no welfare will occur. What if they don't check at the welfare office to see whether you're a citizen or not?
Well, Senator, here's the problem is that I agree with you. All these things would be nice, but we have systems in place now that aren't being implemented because there is no will to implement them at the Department of Homeland Security. Janet Napolitano suspended the SEERS program, that fingerprint registering of people coming into the country from high-risk nations. So she took it upon herself to just suspend that program. So how do we think we're going to track them? They're going to be tracked. They're not going to get welfare. I mean, I just don't think there's any credibility on this.
Well, we have to do something. For example, President Obama also defunded the pilots being armed program. So they want to get rid of arming pilots. And I told Janet Napolitano the other day face-to-face, I said, look, this sends a really bad signal to terrorists that our pilots are no longer going to be armed in our country. And so there's a lot of things that need to be changed. With regard to immigration, though, here's it in a nutshell. Last year, 1 million workers came in to pick crops. 65,000 of them used the ag visa program, the work visa. So it is broken. If we don't fix that, every year we're getting more and more and more coming in illegally. So it isn't just a fence. You do have to have border control, and you have to have control of your border to be a sovereign nation, but you also have to have a work visa program that works. 1 million people are coming in. We do want them to work. We have to figure out how to do it legally and not have them all coming in illegally.
And what in this bill, as it's currently fashioned, in its 844 pages that gives an enormous amount of latitude and discretion to Janet Napolitano in the implementation of it, what in this bill today would prevent an individual coming into this country on a work visa and not remaining here?
We haven't digested it fully, so I can't give you an answer. But that's another reason why we shouldn't be voting on this next week or even in 2 or 3 weeks. We need to have extensive discussions. It's 1,000 pages. We're still working through it in my office, so I can't give you an absolute, is it better or worse? All I can tell you for certain is the system now doesn't work, and I want to make sure if we do immigration reform that we fix the work visa problem. Otherwise, we're back here in 10 years. If they do not fix and make it where farmers will use the work visa program, then people do come. 40% of the 11 million came here once upon a time to pick crops or do something and overstayed their visa. So really, we have to have a system that makes it easy to get a work visa, doesn't take months and doesn't cost thousands of dollars, because these workers are good people and they are performing jobs that Americans are not performing.
Well, 2 weeks ago, Yahar, he was a good person too. 2 weeks ago, he was a regular guy, went to parties, drag raced. I mean, he liked video games. Well, he was a great guy too. So we just don't know.
We're going to look, I think when we look at this, we do have to look and find out. The question I have is how many people does Russia refer to us each year that need extra scrutiny? If it's 50,000, you can say, well, the FBI can't, scrutinize all 50 and follow them all everywhere. If Russia referred to us 20 people last year, then I think there's no excuse for not following and doing more of a job on these brothers. So, but those are questions that need to be asked, because if we're going to discuss immigration reform, part of immigration is asylum seekers and student visas. I think they're our highest risk for attack, and it just is what it is. People coming from about 25 countries that are hotbeds for radical Islam, those are the people who are the risk, international travelers. We need to know where they are, who's coming in, and we need to spend more time on them and less time on the 3-year-old kid who is in a wheelchair.
Why do you think Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer are so excited about immigration reform as it currently exists in this bill? Why do you think they're loving this?
I think it is voting patterns, and typically the new migrant workers from Mexico have been voting Democrat. But what I tell Republicans is the 11 million who are here, whether you ever allow them to vote, whether they ever become citizens, their kids are, and their kids need to see that Republicans are receptive to them as people and not antagonistic to them as people, or they won't listen to us on other issues. So that's one area where Marco and I do agree, is the Republican Party needs to change its attitude with respect to immigrants and whether or not, particularly if they'll work. I mean, if people want to come here and work, I think we can find a place for them. But the other thing we will add to this bill is we're working on an amendment that says no new pathway to citizenship. And there is a new pathway in this bill, and we think that should be the existing pathway. So if you get a work visa and you're here right now undocumented, and we give you a work visa, that you get in the same line that somebody in Mexico City gets in if they apply tomorrow.
Politico has a piece today, Senator, and the title of it, well, it doesn't really surprise me. Immigration reform could be a bonanza for Democrats, that it would transform the nation's political landscape for a generation or more, pumping in as many as 11 million new Hispanic voters into the electorate a decade ago from now, in ways that, if current trends hold, would produce an electoral bonanza for Democrats and cripple Republican prospects in many states they now win easily, one of them being Texas, another North Carolina, Florida, Colorado, Nevada, that would turn completely to the Democrats.
California's already changed because of just what you described. Texas is changing, whether we have immigration reform or not, whether we give work visas to the 11 million here. Texas, within 10 years, is either a blue state or a competitive state because of, a massive amount of immigration. So what we have to say is either somehow we're going to magically reverse all of that, or we're going to say, you know what, the pride of our party always has been the entrepreneurial and work spirit of immigrants. We all came from immigrants. We're going to figure out how we can connect with those who have come. Doesn't mean a free ride, doesn't mean a new pathway to citizenship, but let's figure out how we can connect and normalize the people who are already here working, and at the same time, or preceding that, let's go ahead and secure our border and make work visas dependent on a secure border.
So, Senator, in the bill as it's currently proposed, individuals who have been here but for whatever reason not working, first of all, the people who are here working now are working in violation of our laws. The people who are not working, how do we have any assurances that they would not be granted a pathway to citizenship in this bill?
Well, what I would do, and this is a little different than the bill, is I would not create a new category. I think this bill creates a brand new category for undocumented people, and they go into this new category of visa. I would just have work visas, and I would say if you want to work, go get a job, show us you're working, and you get a work visa. If you don't get one of those, I'm not for creating a new category. I think the category would be, right now, the interesting thing is work visas have no limits if you want to pick crops. Ag work visas have no limits. So if people want to sign up for that, I'd let them sign up for that, but I wouldn't put them in a special line, even a line that they say is not going to move quicker than the normal line. I just put them in the line. If you're in Mexico City right now and you want to come to the United States, there's a line, and it's a pretty significant line. I would let you, if you're here and you want to work, you get a work visa, and then you get in the same line that guy from Mexico City gets in.
But you're ahead of the guy in Mexico City, Senator. You have a work visa, and he doesn't. How are you? How are you behind that guy? I don't understand that logic.
The work visa and citizenship are completely separate things. If you have a work visa, you are not in any line for citizenship. So the line for citizenship is completely independent. The only rule that would have to be changed would be that people wouldn't have to go home to get in that other line. But they would just get in the same line. If tomorrow a guy in Mexico City applies, and this may not be what the bill says now. In fact, I don't think
the bill
it is.
Doesn't say this.
But this is what. Yeah, this is what we're trying to change the bill to say would be tomorrow a guy in Mexico City wants to become a U.S. citizen, he goes down to the consulate and he applies. Same way with the guy here who has a work visa. They apply, and then they get in the line exactly at the same time. But there's about 6 million people in that line.
Right. Well, so Chuck Schumer's not going to go with that. Yeah, Chuck Schumer and Dick Durbin and Menendez, they're not going to agree to that.
But here's the thing is, this isn't passing unless it gets through a conservative House. Unless they ram it through with all Democrats in the House and a few Republicans, it's not going to pass. So what I'm proposing is I am a conservative. I am open-minded to this, but they're going to have to please some people like me and people in the House who have said it's better to do it stepwise. But almost every conservative I'm talking to in the House that is for some form of immigration reform, they're all saying no new pathway to citizenship. And so I think that's an important part of this that the Gang of Eight's going to have to figure out, and I've told them this repeatedly in private and public. If you have a new pathway, you're making it hard for any conservatives to come on board with this.
So, Senator, as I'm hearing you, and I've written down all your points, the current bill as it's now written, you cannot support as it's currently written. Is that accurate?
I haven't made a final conclusion on it. I'm going to try to make the bill a lot better, and I haven't said yet how, because I haven't really read it all yet. We're really working our way through it, and there needs to be an open debate. But my impression right now is I want to make it a lot better before I vote for it.
Okay. The three main points that you raised on this show, I think all 3 points are not addressed in this bill. In fact, the pathway to citizenship is real, and the special status is real, and it's a promise of enforcement with immediate regularized status. And all 3 things you seem to disagree with.
Well, I think that's the debate we have to have over what the contents of the bill are. We have to see if they're going to be open to amending any of these things. If people want immigration reform, and the other thing to acknowledge, though, and that I do acknowledge, is it is broken. So I don't like the current system where 1 million people come in to pick crops and 65,000 of them are documented.
Right, they're not just picking crops. That's part of what they're doing, but it's not working because they're not.
That's what I mean.
Right, well, they're not enforcing the laws.
Yeah, but that's the problem.
Right.
So that's the problem. We have to fix that. If we don't fix that problem, we're going to continue to have this problem every decade. There's another 10 million people new here.
Senator Rand Paul, we appreciate it very much. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll take a break on The Laura Ingraham Show. Stay with us.
The Laura Ingraham Show. Thanks for listening to this podcast excerpt of The Laura Ingraham Show. If you'd like to receive podcasts of our complete shows, go to lauraingraham.com and sign up to become a member of Laura 365. Our Laura 365 members get commercial-free streams and podcasts of our shows every day we're on the air. And also you can listen to the last 30 days of The Laura Ingraham Show. Be ahead of the curve. Join Laura 365.